Welcome to College and Beyond Real Talk with Amour. If you have not already guessed, I'm your host, Amour Carthy. And on today's episode, we are going to be having our guest, Malik Leaphart, and he's going to be talking about the blueprint, how to get into commercial real estate when nobody looks like you. And today's episode is sponsored by Education Innovations, where we help guide families through education decisions from college and graduate admissions to life beyond. And the purpose of our podcast is to help viewers and listeners learn about colleges and different careers they may be interested in. So without further ado, let's get started on this conversation. So Malik, the title of this podcast is, the blueprint, how to, break in commercial real estate when nobody looks like you. So first of all, we know you're big time. I looked in the Atlanta Business Chronicle and saw your face, and I was so proud of you. What is your title?
Also, first of all, thank you for having me.
Of
Super
course.
excited to be here. It's been about 20 years since I've been in your classroom. So,
Yes.
this
Well, we got to
is
tell people then, so how we
okay.
know each other.
Okay. So we'll come back to the original question. My title, Vice President with Stream Realty Partners here in Atlanta. And we can kind of dive into that as we go further, but we'd love to tell everybody like how we know each other and kind of full circle of how this began to be. So,
Yes. So, okay. So going back to the vice president of Stream Realty, that's commercial real estate. And there's all these kind of people talking on the internet about real estate. And so we're not talking about that like residential real estate. We're talking about commercial real estate. So can you explain to the folks who are listening, what is the difference between commercial real estate and residential real estate? Because everybody thinks they can do it.
good question. So, for commercial real estate, our firm, Stream Realty Partners, we focus on office and industrial real estate. And from the differentiation between residential and commercial, it's honestly the same license, but it's a different sectors. And so instead of dealing with housing, we're dealing with actual commercial buildings. And for me specifically, I work on a lot more office product. We can kind of talk about that as we dive into the interview later. But for me, focus on office. I do a little retail, some industrial, but my main bread and butter is office. And so for that, I represent the landlords, the actual owners of the office buildings, and we work with tenant rep brokers who represents the tenants. So, for an example, the space we're in now, this is within the Interlock Tower, the Interlock Phase One building. So the Interlock, located at 14th and Howell Mill Street, we represent the owners, Amada Hoffler, now Trust, Realty Trust. We focus on doing the leasing on their behalf so that we can grab and bring in tenants to lease space within the building.
And this space is beautiful. You all should see it if you have not already come here. So you have been in the commercial real estate field for how long?
So I'll say since January of 2020. So going on 6 years. Formerly was with doing architecture with John Portman and Associates here in Atlanta. And the beauty of John Portman is that they develop and design in house. And so as a designer with John Portman, I was able to see the Portman Holdings teams doing the development anchor of the business. And Travis Garland, who's a chief development officer there, was really trying to get me over and saw a bridge to connect me with Stream, who does a lot of the leasing for some of the buildings that they own. And so he was really pivotal in connecting me into commercial real estate. And so the love for design is still there, but the love of the deal, the love of the transaction for these buildings, especially that shape the skyline of Atlanta, has definitely been pivotal for me, and I've been at Stream ever since, and it's been amazing. And so being able to office here, being able to help others office and grow their businesses in spaces like this has definitely been a huge win.
So you said that somebody was trying to get you over into commercial real estate. So you mean that you didn't just see a job application and then sign up for it?
I
Like
I don't the last time I put in a job application was when I worked at Magic Johnson Theater at Greenbrier Mall.
at Greenbrier Mall. Yeah.
And which was awesome. But in this stage of my career, it's about the relationships. It's about using that relationship to not only always ask, but to also provide so that it's a two-way street. And so for me, constantly being on the other side of the office with the development arm was definitely pivotal for me just being in the room and staying in the room. And so for me, connecting with Travis and team and connecting with other folks in the industry, and we can talk about even Jerome Russell, who
Mhm.
initially was my bridge to get into Portman's door on the design side. And
Mhm.
so being able to get in that door and then figure it out from there was definitely huge, but it wasn't a sign up online or put in your resume or put in an application. It's cherishing that relationship and really leaning in on it and making the most of it. So
See, and I need everyone who's listening to this podcast to understand that the way that you are getting these type of jobs is not by signing up for a job application. It's just like what you said, it's about relationships. And especially in this type of economy or when you are trying to do something that is very impactful, relationships are the key to everything.
mhm.
And I think that, you've always had that ability to connect with people. So when you say that Travis saw you and was trying to bring you over, do you think that was he planting the seeds and you didn't think about commercial real estate? Was he saying, "Hey, Malik, I see that you're doing well in architecture, but have you thought about?" Or did you just say, "Come on over here," and you're like,
I
I don't know. What
I
do you see in me?"
I think they saw characteristics within myself that I didn't really see. So as an architect, during the day, I would work 8 to 5, 8 to 6, and then
Mhm.
after that, I'd go work next door at the hotel in the restaurant. So I used to serve as a server. And so
Why
from
were you
there,
doing that? If you already had a job as
yeah.
architect, talk about that. My mother was an architect, so I know about that.
Just wasn't getting paid enough, and just that hunger to continue want to work. And
Mhm.
so from there, I'd work during the day,
Mhm.
I'd serve, try to make some extra money at night. I also used to work with AMB Entertainment over with Mercedes Benz
Oh,
with
you
Arthur
was doing it
Blank.
all.
So I used to do live events there, and so from there, just creating those relationships, fostering those relationships, and really honing in on my characteristics of me being a people person, which I just wouldn't find that behind the screen drawing stairwells and drawing bathrooms for
Right.
buildings, right?
Right.
And so from there, I really saw that I was a connector, and people like Travis and people like Jerome Russell and
Mhm.
people like my mentor, which we will talk about, see that within me and help me with creating and fostering and really unleashing those characteristics as a person. Find what you're good at
Mhm.
and then figure out how to really create that avenue and being able to do that on the brokerage side as a commercial real estate broker has definitely been my path that I never knew I had.
So when you say broker, can you tell us more about being a commercial real estate broker? What does that entail? And then, I know that's one question I always ask by million. What is your day to day like?
Yeah, so
Mhm.
so I'm actually a transaction specialist. The
Mhm.
broker who holds the license in our office at Stream,
Mhm.
Simon Arpieri, and he's our managing director. And so we hang our license with him as the broker. The layman term for just the day to day
Mhm.
transaction is I'm a broker. We
Mhm.
broker deals.
Okay.
And so again, my team, we represent the owners of the buildings, and we connect with tenant rep brokers.
Mm.
And so that relationships together create the deal. So we
Mhm.
see that Microsoft or Nike or fan base is looking for office or
Mm.
retail or industrial space. And we want to make sure we have the best buildings so that we can get the best tenants. And so we're brokering a deal. Is that simple? And for me, working with Portman in a prior just gave me the relationships on the landlord side. So I'm constantly in those rooms with your heavy hitters like a Selig or Cousins or Portman or Blackstone to be
Mhm.
able to represent them on their buildings so that we can get the best talent and the best tenants to lease their space.
So let me ask you another thing. So I'm a historian by, trade. I used to be his history teacher.
Which
So
we used to always have to come to class with a current event
that's
every
right.
day,
That's right.
which is huge. Like you gotta stay current, even though AJC and the paper is not being printed, but still having that. All right, well, what did you learn new today? So going into your day, coming out of it with at least something new, like and being able to make sure like that was huge for us to be able to not even just scramble to find some news, but be intentional about all right, well, what is happening around in the world today?
I forgot about that. But I was going to ask you something similar about how maybe paying attention to the news or history or what's going around can help you broker deals or reach out to people. For example, no, I was serious when I always read the Atlanta Business Chronicle to see what's going on in the landscape of economics in the Atlanta metro area. So even though I have my business where I help young people get into college and graduate school, I'm always looking and going to different conferences on different industries. Like it could be cybersecurity, it could be, content creator. It's whatever because my clients want to do different things. So I need to be aware.
Mhm.
So how do you look at what's going on in the landscape? So you like, oh yeah, I read about this person or this company is looking for this, and so let me reach out. Or how do you go about?
Absolutely. I mean,
Hmm.
it's from what baseball or basketball game was
Hmm.
happening in the evening before, and what's happening with market trends. Are people coming into the office? We track a lot of that. What businesses are relocating to create headquarters? So there's so many different things that we're watching. Are there certain C-suite changes that are happening within different companies? Are there certain trends that the younger generation are doing that will soon take over and will change the trajectory of how companies operate? For us, we really like hearing good news about companies that are trying to bring folks back into the office, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to do this podcast with you in person versus virtual. Just because it's a different dynamic,
It
right?
is.
And so we are in person, we're connecting. You learned how to set up a podcast room today.
Right.
We learned so many different things on mic testing,
Yes.
and so all of that is done in person. And so for us being able to your original question on what you're watching, it's everything. Local news,
Yes.
national news, international news, and how it definitely affects companies and how it can help you that when you're in a room, you can have talking points. And so one huge thing that we're seeing is that folks are getting in the room, especially with the younger generation, and they just don't know how to connect or talk.
Right.
Maybe because they don't have things to talk about or they're scared of certain things to talk about. But being aware and being aligned with what's current is definitely helps with clients that you're trying to chase,
Mm.
clients that you have relationships with, and people that you want to foster relationships with.
So I'm not gonna lie. This generation, how old are you? What's
35, 36 in August.
I will say the clients that I'm reaching out to in his generation, y'all always ask, "Are we gonna do it in person?" So
Hmm.
you are the first person that I am doing this in person, and I'm glad that you pushed me to do this. It is important to meet in person. And you're right, the younger generation doesn't necessarily know how to interact. And so it is important. I think that body language, how to, how do you talk? How do you look at someone? How can you tell if they don't like what you're, saying? There's all kinds of things that you can observe when interacting with someone. So thanks for pushing me. But now let's go back to you also said that you had an architect degree. Um,
Yep. My master's in architectural design from Hampton University, the real
wait,
HU.
so I messed up. So I thought you just had an undergrad. So you have a master's and a bachelor's from
So
Hampton?
it's a 5.5 year program. So you come out with your MArch,
Okay.
master's. Yep.
Okay, so okay, first well, I went to Spelman,
So,
and I love
so did my
HBCUs.
grandma. So did my grandmother.
Okay, so why did you choose architecture, and then why did you choose Hampton?
A great question. So for my design emphasis in school, it was design. And, for us, not really knowing what to study
Mhm,
is still, I think, huge. Right? You get to school and you're just trying to figure out, all right, what do I want to do? Where do I
mhm.
want to go? I was a musician, so I also played in the band.
You did in
I
high school too?
I did that in high school, middle school, elementary school, and I knew that was a could be a conduit for me to be able to help pay for school, right? Or
Mm,
figure out which school to go to. And so Hampton had a great music program
mhm,
as well as an architectural program. And so being able to play in the band, help with scholarship, and I knew that Hampton's architectural program would allow for me to do 5.5 years. That half was the summer
mhm,
abroad. So I studied in Italy and was able to come out with my master's. And for me, the schools that I was looking at were definitely out of state. I knew all my relationships were here, and I would
mhm.
eventually come back to Atlanta.
Okay.
But being able to get out and see more, which
Mhm,
is it was super pivotal for me, being able to go to Hampton University in Virginia and being able to come back home and make some stops throughout the way to come back home, but
mhm.
venturing out, not being too comfortable being at home with family, being able to get out, see more people, learn more,
Mhm.
and then it was actually very worthwhile.
So, I'll tell you a little story. Hampton is actually the first HBCU that I ever visited when I was in ninth grade, and I actually went to visit a visiting architecture professor who was my stepmother's friend. So, I always have loved Hampton, and to hear about your experience, that's amazing. So, you're not telling people about your whole entire experience. So you're telling me that you went to Hampton, you were in the band, you
Mhm.
got a Poly scholarship. I sent some folks over there to Hampton too. But did you pledge?
I did pledge.
So what did you pledge?
What do you think I pledged?
Well, you dress well, you speak well.
That's an Omega man.
Okay.
I pledge Omega.
Okay.
The Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, just for those who need
So
clarity.
is anybody in your family on Omega
My
or
father
okay.
pledged at Dillard Theta Sig 83, and my grandfather, who's no longer with us, pledged Psi.
Oh,
Morehouse, Spelman, and Dillard. My parents met at Dillard
okay.
in New Orleans.
So I just visited Dillard for the first time a couple weeks ago because my aunt had passed, so we passed through there. But I love Dillard too.
Mhm.
I didn't not. I was like,
Mm.
okay,
So for me, Dillard was an option, but it was post Katrina, so the campus
yeah,
wasn't really in good shape, and so all the pieces just kept leading me to Hampton. Um, Ended up going with a really good friend of mine, Shelly
of
Andrews,
course.
and
Shout out to Shelly.
it was just it's really the home by the sea, and
Yes.
it definitely felt that way, and definitely glad to be home in Atlanta
Hmm.
and to nurture on those relationships that I have. The overall answer to that is getting uncomfortable, going to somewhere where you aren't complacent, and really just finding what you're good at. And Hampton allowed me the chance to do so.
Okay, so now we're gonna get into the real questions.
Oh yeah.
So we have the when nobody looks like you. So I'm gonna start asking the uncomfortable questions because we want to help people, especially. So now you went to a black college, you're from Atlanta,
hmm
but then you're in a space where, yeah, nobody looks like you. How do you develop relationships or how do you deal with those uncomfortable situations? How do you find connections?
How do you find connections? Be in the room,
Okay.
right? And
Hmm.
so don't allow fear to steer you away from putting yourself in the room. There's some folks that I work with who make fun of me just because I'll show up, even
Yeah,
though I'm not registered for something.
that's right.
I'll just show up because the
Same
worst they
here.
can say is no. The worst that anybody can say is no, and I'd rather be in the room and be present so that I can create relationships and versus saying that I wish I did. Even for something simple as like going down to the Masters.
Right.
I didn't have tickets to the Masters. I just
You
went down to
did?
Augusta
I love
and
that.
my boy T happened to set me up in a nice little hospitality
Mhm.
area and I've fostered some relationships so that now in the years to come, I'm gonna make sure I'm in. And
That's what I'm talking
that's something
about.
that you can connect back to just showing up, being in the room, being present.
Right. No, the being present is so important. So what topics do you find, like, people love to talk about no matter what too?
Sports.
Okay.
Sports is key. My mom's always told me people love to talk about themselves. So I always
Don't get said,
ask.
"Look," I just be like, "Tell me more."
I always ask, and I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah.
Like I love to see what people have going on. And my girl, I always ask her, "So how was your day? How are you
Yes.
doing?"
Mhm.
And so we would say sports. People like to talk about themselves. People like to talk about, like you're saying, current events, what's
Mhm.
happening new, like
Mhm.
what's going on. People always like to talk about not only like what's the newer hottest spots. I love food,
Yes,
right? So being
food
able to
always.
connect with the food and beverage hospitality, even as a previous server bartender, I was able to really lock in on the passion that people have for food and
Mhm.
being in the room, whether it's with a drink, with some food, and so sports, people's day to day, current events, food, hospitality, and then family, right? So,
Yes.
how's your family? I know a lot of people are kind of keep themselves closed off on
Mhm.
certain things, but sometimes people like to brag on, all right, well, my daughter's getting married, or
Yes.
my son's doing this, or my wife's doing this, and so being able to really let people light up when it comes to talking about their family and the success that people are having. Because work is just always so bearing on us. So
Yes.
being able to talk about good news, whether it's about a good ball game or a good beverage or a good dish or some major success with family.
So I love, what you said about genuinely wanting to, know. So I feel like when you are talking to someone, like looking in their face, like you want to know, but then also giving off the energy. Because if you ask the person a question and you don't like look, yeah. So I feel like whatever energy you give off is the
Oh,
energy that you
absolutely.
get off, get back.
Absolutely.
So I can't remember the book that I used to give to people. It's a classic. It's not from 1950s. It's a business book about how to influence and what I'll
We'll get it.
you know what I'm talking about. But it's so important just to ask people like how they're doing. And it always leads to a conversation. And the showing up is so important. I go to so many conferences. I see you everywhere when I'm everywhere in Atlanta, but people remember you.
Yeah.
So the other thing that I think I would like to ask you about is what would you suggest to maybe someone in college who doesn't know what they want to do, but they're trying to figure it out?
Find somebody that is doing what you want to be doing and go meet them. Try to be like them. Find a mentor.
Find a mentor.
So my mentor, he doesn't know that I'm doing this. So
Who's your mentor?
LP Green, he's does a ton of stuff. Currently, he's the president and chief growth officer for Golf Illustrated, and he's just been super, super pivotal.
That's that magazine, Golf
Yeah,
Illustrated. Oh,
yeah, yeah.
okay.
And so he's somebody that I want to be like. And
Mhm.
so I'm constantly
What
calling him.
aspects do you wanna be like about him? Is it his personality?
Owns the room,
Okay,
is from a lifestyle,
okay,
the way he moves, the way he travels, the way
mhm,
he networks.
okay,
And I don't want to talk too much about him. Just
okay,
don't want to. But the things that he does is
mhm,
very very aligned with where I see myself.
okay,
So connecting with him,
mhm,
being in the room with him, figuring out what rooms he's in to try to break into those rooms,
okay,
creating those relationships. It happens with a mentor, right? And
right,
so, what habits does he have?
mhm,
What's his daily routine?
mhm.
What are the regiments that he's doing? To try to mimic that so that
Mhm.
I can try to at least be anywhere near as successful as him. Happens when we're not reinventing the wheel. Just find somebody that also wants to bring you under their wing as a mentee, but you won't be able to find that unless you're out and about and you're connecting and
So
you're
isn't there a
crossing.
difference between a mentor and an advisor? Because I feel like mentors are people who support you emotionally and listen to you, but an advisor is somebody who's gonna put you within their networks.
And I think advisor would be more work related, geared towards certain things
Oh.
professionally versus a
Mhm.
mentor is we're talking
Life.
life.
Yes.
We're gonna always talk about work, but a lot of times LP's like, man, come on, man. I already know what you're doing with work. Let's how's things with
You.
personal
Yeah.
family. That's key too, because mentally that helps
Yes.
with being balanced.
Mhm.
And for me, I leave a lot of people, especially after COVID, a lot of people just don't have a separation of home and state. And so for me, I do work a lot. I'm always in the office, but once I'm home, it's a separation. So you can still remain some kind of sanity.
Yes.
But and so for LP as well, it's definitely we're always on, but he knows how to turn it off and keep that reset so that you're balanced.
Okay, so and we talked all this business stuff. What do you do for fun?
Been
So
golf.
serious.
No, no, no. So one family's first.
Okay.
Grandma, I'm with grandma
Okay.
every week.
What y'all do together? Does she bake you pies?
Hi, that's funny. No, she's all comfort food. She's
Okay.
91, just turned 91 a couple weeks ago.
Oh.
Spellman, she was the Golden Girls.
Yes, what I'm talking about.
So family, my
Mhm,
brother, my dad, my mom,
mhm.
all my cousins, my girl,
Okay, girl.
the food and beverage we're talking about,
Mhm,
just out and about music,
mhm,
shows, um, the for work as well.
mhm.
Outside of that, networking, so
Okay.
events,
No, I said fun. Well, I guess
fun.
you like you're
Oh no, that's
everywhere.
fun for me.
Yeah,
Being
that
out
is
and
true.
about,
I see you at games,
yeah,
like
out and about, and honestly, being like we're saying,
mhm,
sporting events,
mm.
and I've been doing a lot of running, so I'm currently doing an 80-day fast where I do no drinking.
Oh,
So I'm doing that every year
and
just to
it's
help for a cleanse.
and I wanted to celebrate it, but
No,
okay.
we can tell 'em, and it's actually crazy how a lot of that is you're starting to see a lot of like non-alcoholic beverages, not just the mocktails with a bunch of sugar, but just because it's just not
Mhm.
leaning on that so
Yeah,
much, and not thinking that you always have to do that when you're out in those rooms.
yeah. We can have a
Is
smoothie.
huge, right? Golfing's
Mhm,
been huge. Me
mhm.
and my little brother, who's actually getting way better than me. And
How old's your little brother?
he is, is
Oh,
he 31? Yeah, he's 31 now. So golfing's been huge. Hot yoga
okay,
and
so
yeah, and no, it's actually very, very, very soothing.
I can't take the heat.
Yeah, honestly, for me, I'm such a foodie. I want to always be in the newest and best restaurant. So that's how I spend a lot of my downtime and a lot of money.
Okay. Well, since we are, done with the episode, what I would like for you to do is look in that camera and tell the listeners a last piece of advice before we close off. And I do my little announcements.
Yeah, awesome. Well, one, thanks again for having me. My biggest piece of advice is to find who you are. Don't change who you are for anyone. Find who you are and find your best potential. Unlock that potential. Find a mentor. Find folks that are aligned in the path that you want to find yourself in and just go after it. Get uncomfortable and don't take no for an answer. Put yourself in the room and it'll all be all right.
I love that.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for listening. And if you need support with your, graduate or college admissions, make sure to schedule a call with us. Thank you. Bye bye.